and college football time with Avry Miguel. Avry, LSU, Ole Miss.
This is going to be a great game. Lane Kiffin is kind of this coach that is a character, but he's not a character. He is a great coach. And he said last week that, let's beat, the state of Alabama. Ole Miss ended up beating Auburn. So this week, Ole Miss 7-0, they're ranked 7th. They also have the same record as Georgia, which is amazing, but they're still only ranked 7th. LSU 5-2, their season hasn't started out real well, but they're going to come for Ole Miss on this one. So the one thing about Ole Miss, they've won 11 straight games going back to last year. So this is going to be good. Ole Miss has a really good time scoring points. They average about 40 points a game. They only allow about 17. When you have LSU, they're only scoring about 33, but they're giving up 21. And when it comes to yards, Ole Miss is just producing yards everywhere, over 500 yards per game, but they're only allowing about 346, but a bulk of those yards are passing that they allow. So their defense is going to have to are going to have to be really careful in the secondary about giving these long plays. LSU, on the other hand, they do produce a lot of yards, but it's the same thing. They give up a lot of passing, but they also produce a lot of passing. This is going to be a defensive game, but the score is not going to look like a defensive game. The over-under is about 68, and I see this game being really, really close. So I'm going to go 35-34, Ole Miss barely taking it.
LSU, if they don't tackle, it's going to be a long night for them. Coach Kelly said that last week's win against Florida was their best offensive game of the season. So they're going to have to, they can be on and off. They have to be consistent. So I have Ole Miss winning 31-24. I don't know. LSU has been on and off. But coming into this game, they're going to have to be on their P's and Q's, and they're going to have to tackle. They have to play defense.
Absolutely. And another thing is this is being played at home. This is LSU's backyard. Even when you're on the road, you still need to win at home. So they need to come at LSU with their home crowd behind them. If that doesn't work and Ole Miss just takes the crowd out, it's not going to work for them.
We have the Big 12 showdown, Kansas State, TCU. Who do you got?
This is going to be probably, I think, one of the good games of the season because both teams are coming off other Big 12 matchups, but this one is special. You have TCU ranked 8th, 6-0. They lead the Big 12. You have Kansas State. They've had these really close games, except for the first game of their season, and they're winning about less than 10 points. Last week they barely beat Ohio State, and if you want to call it a defensive game, 10-9. But they've also beat some teams where if you look, you didn't think they'd win. Kansas State has beat Texas Tech. Kansas State has beat Oklahoma. Oklahoma, since the inception of the playoff, has always been a preseason favorite, and beating Oklahoma is a statement. So Kansas State, their loss to Tulane probably stings a bit with their record, them being ranked 17th, but I think they're showing against Oklahoma is still giving them life that they can still be a contending team. You have TCU that for lack of a better term, is probably going to just beat up the Big 12 from this game and then every other game that they have left. But this could be the test for them, especially if it can mean a playoff spot. It seems far-fetched, but if they can finish with a perfect record, them being in the playoff should be warranted to them. They had a double overtime win against Oklahoma State. I think that's a game of the year contender. It was a very good game. Beating Kansas was also a big game because Kansas was just coming out on fire and they just made it a great game. And then, of course, TCU beat Oklahoma. And they've proven themselves this year. In years past, they've been close, but when it comes down to these Big 12 showdowns, they stall out. So when it comes to, points, TCU is scoring 46 points a game, but they're only allowing 16 points a game. So their defense is making it possible for TCU to stay on top. And when it comes to yards per game, 526 yards, TCU is just putting up yards left and right, and it is on their passing game. Even what they allow, they're only allowing about 265, but still too much, and their defense needs to prove it. With Kansas State, it's going to be the same thing. They only put up 29 points. They have to score against TCU to make this an interesting game. They only produce about 403 yards total, but they barely produce on the passing, only 158. So they have to be able to put the ball in the air. They have to be able to make some big plays. They have to test that defense of TCU. But another thing that's really close is both teams barely allow about 135 points on the run. So these defense can stop the run if it comes to that. So this is going to be, you're airing out the ball, you're going deep, you're trying to get that really big play to score. And both teams, it being a Big 12 game, they want the win. They want the win to submit themselves as the top team in the Big 12. Over-under is about 55, but again, I still see this close, and I'm going to go out on a limb and say this game goes into overtime. So I'm going to give it to TCU, but it's going to be close. I think special teams might come down to it. 45-42 in overtime, TCU.
Interesting. Adrian Martinez, he's gonna have to be huge for Kansas State. He's been sensational. He hasn't thrown any interceptions this year. Max Dugan only has one interception. So both quarterbacks, it's gonna be a great battle between both of them. The thing is that TCU is one of the highest scoring offenses in college football this year. And I feel that it's going to be a high scoring game. I have TCU 42-38.
I agree. This is going to be, one of those games a couple years ago where the score got out of control when it was like 72-70. This is going to be definitely high scoring. TCU, Kansas State, they want to say, hey, we are big dogs of the Big 12. Considering both teams beat Oklahoma, that is going to be their main statement to say, hey, you need to look out for us.